Hi, my name is Jordy Izzard. I'm Senior Associate Director of Alumni Relations at SAIS, and today's date is January 15th, 2015, and I am here today with Kay Showker, who graduated from SAIS in the class of 1955, and it's so great to be able to spend some time with you. Thank you. And we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation, and why don't we just start with what originally brought you to SAIS?
I attended SAIS almost by accident. I happened to be in Washington at a party, and I met Professor Paul Lindbergh. No, I don't have it right.
Lindbergh, I think.
Lindbergh. Yeah, that's right, Line, because anyway, Paul got very much interested in me because at the time I was doing Russian studies, and I had in my head that I was going to continue. But because I was of Lebanese origin and had spoken Arabic as a child, he had this theory that if you had spoken a language as a child, all you had to do is go back and study it and it would all come back to you. So as a result, he insisted that I came to SAIS and made sure that I got a scholarship as a result. Well, I mean, who could turn down a scholarship to SAIS? So I gave up the Russian studies and said, okay. And of course that pleased my family very much because I had been doing some Middle Eastern studies, but I really hadn't thought about it as seriously until I went to SAIS. And that's when I really got serious about Middle Eastern studies, and I took Arabic. Unfortunately, his theory didn't really pan out. And with my southern accent, I got kidded all the time about speaking Arabic with a southern accent. But I learned, and I worked at it, and I did. And I finally, at one point, when I went to Egypt to school, actually wrote my father a letter in Arabic. And that really pleased him. So, you know, it wasn't all lost. But that's how I got there.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tell us, what were you, so you started in 53, and what were your experiences while you were there?
Well,
what are your memories?
We were, you know, the school was still on Florida Avenue at that time, in a brownstone on Florida, big, you know, old house on Florida Avenue, and we were a very small class. So we all knew each other, we all palled around with each other, and, I mean, we were serious students. But it was a different atmosphere, I think, than people have now, certainly at SAIS, or even almost any graduate school that has a real campus. I mean, at the time we were, I don't know, we were their early children, in effect. But I had good professors. My Middle Eastern one was Dr. Janaury. That I enjoyed him very much. And I got absorbed in, you know, learning about the Middle East in general, but specifically more. And that's what really motivated me to go to the Middle East and to spend time there. And after that, I was a year in Cairo, and then later I lived in Lebanon. So, I mean, all of that did have some fruit. And I wrote eventually wrote some guidebooks to the Middle East. But, you know, it's been a long time since I was there, and I haven't really spent a lot of time in Washington since. So, and because SAIS changed so radically after it moved and had modern buildings and all of that.
What was going on while you were there, like historically?
Historically, one of the most important things was the Senator McCarthy's the hearings at that time. And I know we used to, as soon as class was over, there was a nearby bar that had a television set, and we'd all sit there glued to it. And that was probably I'd have to think about any others, but that was really the one that stands out the most. One of the things that I thought about those years, we did not get into really controversial issues. I think we kind of all agreed, you know, it was a small group to start with, and we were all interested in foreign affairs. So our thinking was not so much domestic at that time that we conflicted. But I don't really remember anybody in our class, I'm sure there must have been, but anybody that we got into those kind of, discussions, it was much more looking to the future of our own careers.
And speaking of which, tell us a little bit when you graduated from SAIS, how you started your career, how it evolved.
Well, that's too long a story to every detail, but I'll make it very quick. Right after SAIS, I went to Egypt, and I was in school there for a year, doing graduate school at the American University of Cairo and at Cairo University. I was a special student because, being a foreigner, had to, and my Arabic was not that strong. At any rate, that led me to think about travel writing, because I could see that there was no such thing as a book on travel for travelers, except, the old books, the old Baedekers and things like that. So after I got back to the States, I started with the idea of Egypt first. It was a hard sell to any publisher. So I went to Lebanon, and there I found a publisher, and I ended up doing Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and I was in the process of working on Iraq when Pan American asked me to write a travel book on the five countries that I just mentioned. I did, and it came out 10 days before the 6-Day War. So you know how successful that effort was. Anyway, it didn't deter me exactly, because I then at some point went to work for Middle East Airlines, because I was I got very interested in the business of travel, as well as just, the pleasure of it. So working for Middle East Airlines in Beirut, I finally had to decide which side of the Atlantic I was going to live on, And I came back to New York, actually, for Middle East, working as their public relations. And that was kind of a dead end. So at some point, I met the editor of Travel Weekly, which was the leading travel trade publication. And to make a very long story short, I ended up working there and stayed there 10 years. And during that time, I really traveled all over the world. And, that was really the great thing about it, to be able to travel and write, to have a magazine to write about all the time. But after 10 years, I was ready to move on. And that's when I went out on my own and started really concentrating on writing books.
That's
which
terrific,
is what I mostly have done. I write articles or have over the years, but I really have concentrated on doing guidebooks.
Guidebooks, and what have your last two been, for example?
Well, the most recent one I did was Jamaica, which was an ebook. And I did it mainly because I wanted to learn about doing ebooks. But among the bigger sellers, I have a book called The Unofficial Guide to Cruises. I have 4 books on the Caribbean. The 100 Best Resorts in the Caribbean, Caribbean Ports of Call, The Outdoor Traveler's Guide to the Caribbean, and what else? I can't even remember.
And have you been to all those places multiple times?
Well,
great.
when I was at Travel Weekly, at one point I was the feature editor, and cruising was just starting to become a important travel industry within the travel industry. Cruising was becoming important, and that was my beat. So, and the Caribbean was the logical place for most of the ships at the in the early days of that kind of cruising, that pleasure cruising, not steamship going from port to port, but going for a holiday. And the combination of the two, of the cruising in the Caribbean, I ended up visiting on every island in the Caribbean many times, as a matter of fact. So by the time I left Travel Weekly, I really had already established myself as, knowledgeable and started the books on the Caribbean. So that really was what my base was as a freelancer. And of course, I tried to branch out, but when you're working on your own by yourself, you really do have to concentrate on an area. You can't be all things to all people. It's just impossible.
And I assume you picked the one you like the most.
Well, no. Yes, it was convenient. Both, I enjoyed it, obviously. You can't write about something if you don't really enjoy it. But also, it was the most in demand. That was the one where I was getting assignments without having to go and look for them, So it was the combination of all those things more than anything else. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. And you're continuing to do that now?
Well, yes, I do. I'm trying to slow down. I haven't been very good at it, but I keep saying, it's time to smell the roses. But,
well, maybe you are. Maybe you always have been.
Yeah, no, it's not in me to start to, not be busy, not do everything, but.
Well, and thinking about, given kind of your career and all that you've done and how it's kind of evolved in different places and all the travel, what advice might you have for a current student today at SAIS?
I'd say follow your real love. Don't get deterred. If you really have an objective and you really want to do something, do it. Because if you find that you're not happy in your career, either because you've made the wrong turn, you made the wrong selection or something, it's not going to get any better. So you might as well just, recognize that. And if you can start from the beginning to do what you really love doing, you'll want to stick with it. Things will start, to fall in place. Opportunities will appear. That's the best advice I can possibly give anybody.
That's great, and it sounds like you followed that.
Yeah, well, yes, I guess.
Yeah.
More or less, I never thought about it that way, but I'm sure that did happen, yeah.
Well, great. I really appreciate your time today, and we're so happy for, all you've done and been able to do, and thanks for all you give back to SAIS.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.